This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. Okay, we are, everyone's invited to join us at 1601 Quentin Road at the BJX location. Also, we graciously thank, we don't announce this enough, to the Bet Juro for sponsoring and paying for the food every week and bringing to our Gorski community. And this is women only. Thank you very much. Tonight we are learning the Ufuat HaNefesh, to Hachzara B'Tshuva, to Yerad Moshe Shmuel Ben Michaela Batya, as well as to a healthy delivery for whoever needs a healthy delivery, and whoever needs a Fuat Shlema, Fuat HaNefesh, Fuat HaGuf, B'soch Shar Chole Yisrael. Okay, so tonight we are speaking about a topic that actually I've been asked to speak about for quite some time, and I've never gotten around it. And this is a question that I get very often, is people that come over to me and say, like, listen, let's say I was religious for a long time, so either a Baal Tshuva or I am from birth. So I became, I was always religious, and now you come to a sort of place where everything is through habit. It's called habitual Judaism or robotic Judaism. You do everything based off habit, and you don't think about anything, you don't do anything. So a question that I get asked very often is, how do I get out of it? How do I get to a point where I am in a different situation that I'm just like doing things without any emotion, without any thought, without any, just going through the motions? And this is a very, very important question. And this is also a very important time to speak about it. So the way that we're going to go and tackle this type of question is through a very, very popular acronym for the month of Elul. The month of Elul is known for Ani Ledodi V'Dodi Li. Bless you, Gesundheit. Anybody know anything in other languages? Okay. Sisa. What language is that? Oh, Hasidim. Oh, yeah? Okay, so Sisa?
Asisa.
Oh, Asisa. You did. That's probably what it's for health. Okay, so Ani L'Dod, I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. Now, this is a topic that I really do love when I speak about like this era of time period of Elul, right before Rosh Hashanah. What is this all lovey-dovey thing? You realize we're coming before the Judgment Day. What are we talking about? A week and a half, even less than a week and a half is Judgment Day, meaning that everything that's going to happen to you the next year is going to be written, sealed, signed in written, depending on how much knowledge you know, at least written on Rosh Hashanah. Everything is coming down over there. So there's a reason to be fearful. There's a reason to be scared. Imagine you come in front of the judge, and the judge is basically signing off whether you're going to be a free man, whether you're going to be in prison, whether you're going to be a wealthy, whether you're going to be poor, whether you're going to be healthy, something to be scared for. So what is it that the Judaism goes and says, oh, Judgment Day, I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. Here's a rose for you, and here's a rose for you, and we're all so proud, we're all so happy, really it should be fear. So what are we dealing with over here? So I want to share with you a story that I came across. It was so amazing. I love the humor in this following story. There was once which will show you something about me. There was once a chassid, a Lubavitcher chassid, that he was known for his wit, his wisdom. Even the Gentiles knew him for his wit and wisdom. And there was a renowned speaker known as a Maggid. Maggid is a speaker that goes, what he does is he goes from town to town, and he speaks and tries to encourage and motivate the Jewish people. There was a time that there was no such thing as internet. I know we can't understand it, we can't comprehend it, but there was a time when there was no internet, there was no connectivity, there was no telephones, there was no even pictures. So the way that it worked is that there were some rabbis, leaders, public speakers, public figures that would go and they would risk at their own comfort to go travel from town to town, and there was no like Best Western, which would be considered a 12-star hotel in those days. There was no, Hilton, there's no Sheraton, there was nothing. You would sleep in a little shed in the, where the Bet Midrash was or the Bet HaKnesset was, and you go from town to town to try to encourage the Jewish people to come closer to God. So there was one particular Magid who went from town to town, and he sent his advertisement beforehand. Righteous person coming to the town. If you want to invite me, you can invite me. Like all these, like amazing things about himself. And he would send it out. And when the town people heard of this Lubavitcher chassid, heard that there's such a righteous person coming before Rosh Hashanah and Elul, he says, we must invite him to speak in our synagogue. So they invite him. And he comes in, and he starts speaking, and he starts screaming, and like one after another, there's accusation and accusation after the people in that community. And he says, you're going to go, and you're going to have a terrible year, you're going to burn, you're going to have so many punishments, so many difficult things, and because of all the sins that you did, and the people were so scared, they were so shocked, there was no Torah anytime, there was nothing that they just would sit there, and they were crying, they were shaken to the core. And finally, when this Maggid, when this preacher, when this teacher went and he felt satisfied, he closed off the lecture and then he went to the back room where he was staying. Now, this particular chassid that I gave you the introduction about, he wasn't very fond of this method. He's like, this is what Judaism is. So he decides he's going to do something about it. So he goes, and he's a big guy. He walks into the back room and he picks up the biggest knife that he owns. And then he picks up a sharpening stone where you would go and you would sharpen the knife for, the next kill. And he goes into the room very quietly, doesn't say a word. The guy, the Maggid, the speaker, is sitting in the corner. He walks into the room, opens the door, doesn't look at him, turns around, closes the door, and locks all the locks. It's like, all the locks are locked. And he doesn't say a word. The guy is like, the Maggid just sees a big guy walk in with a knife and a stone. And he sits down in the corner, and he's like sharpening, and like sparks are flying. And like 2 minutes go by, doesn't say a word. 3 minutes go by. Finally, the speaker goes, excuse me, sir, what you doing? And he's like, I'm sharpening the stone. He's like, yeah, I see that, but why? So he's like, my dear honorable, the great Maggid, he says, that our community, because of all the sins that we did, which you're very familiar with, all obviously unintentional, but it's because we never merited a righteous, God-fearing scholar in our midst. And then he continues, and he continues doing it. And the speaker is looking at him, the Maggid is looking at him, and be like, yeah, that's true. And he doesn't say anything, he just keeps on sharpening his stone. Another minute goes by, and he says, the speaker goes over to this chassid and he says, listen, but you still never told me what's with the sharpening and the knife doing over here. So he's like, oh, it's very, very simple. Before Rosh Hashanah, it's known that you're supposed to pray at the graves at the righteous. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm aware of that. He's like, okay. And he's like, like sparks are flying. 2 minutes go by, and he's like, excuse me, my dear friend, you still never answered my question. Why are you sharpening the knife over here? Oh, and he said, oh, I'm sorry. It's so simple. It's very simple. See, the nearest gravesite to our town, which doesn't have a lot of righteous people, is very, very far. And he's like, and he continues sharpening it. Suddenly, he's like, now he's beginning to sweat. He's like, yeah, but you still didn't explain to me what you're doing in my room sharpening a knife. So he said, that's very simple. The townspeople, they want a righteous person buried in the town so they could utilize it before Rosh Hashanah to pray. So at this point in time, the speaker realizes what's going on. And he's like, looks at the door, looks at his escape route, and he says, listen, I'm not really so righteous, I've done a sin before, or two, possibly. And he's like, yeah, like what? And he says a few light sins, yeah, but that's not really sins, that's not a problem, don't worry about it. He's like, it goes back to sharpening it. He's like, no, I've actually done more serious avirot, more serious sins. Like what? And he says more serious ones. It's like that? I didn't even know there was a sin. He starts laughing like crazy, and he starts sharpening it again. And then suddenly he goes and he says, no, you don't understand. I've done some serious stuff. And he tells him these sins, and he says, you know what? It's good enough for us. Don't worry about it. And he continues sharpening it. Finally, the speaker goes and says, listen, I'm a fraud, I'm a phony. I wrote the letters myself. I sent it out. I only do it for... He went and he basically broke down. And very quietly, this chassid went, took the knife, put it away, locked it up in the cabin, and then he went and he gave him his little peace of mind, his little chizuk that he wanted for the speaker. He says, what do you think? He says, this is what Judaism is all about. This is what Judaism is. It's all it is. It's about fear, about crying, about scared, about everything. There's more to it than that. When we come into Rosh Hashanah, we have to think about it. What is it? Is it fear? The answer is 100% yes. You should be very, very scared because everything that's going to happen in that year is going to be decreed on Rosh Hashanah. But there's something else missing in Judaism that we tend to forget, and that is serving God out of love. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. You have to serve God out of love. And we tend to forget this throughout the year, and especially during the times that we need it the most. So, when we come to Rosh Hashanah, we come to Elul, we come to preparation for it, let's try to discuss what is the best way, what is the best thing that you could do to prepare yourself for the best possible judgment. So I want to share with you something from Rabbi Shimshon Pincus. Rabbi Shimshon Pincus says the zodiac sign for Elul. Anybody know what the zodiac sign for Elul is? Virgo. Betula. Virgo in English.
Oh, right.
So, well, happy birthday. So the question is, what is that? Betula is somebody that was never with any, like look at the example, Virgo. What is that so important about Elul? You think about it. Why is that? Tishrei, it's scales. Okay, fine. So we know we're getting judged. The scales make sense. What's this Betula, concept? So, Shimshon Pincus goes and explains like this. He brings down the Rambam, and he says like that when somebody goes and let's say there's a wife that is unfaithful to her husband. The halacha is that wife is forbidden to her husband. And the Jewish people are comparable to that type of relation, to husband and wife. Now, if the Jewish people sin, that is considered as if they're unfaithful to God. So then the question is it's just like a woman who is unfaithful to her husband is not allowed to be with her husband, then how can it be if a Jewish person goes and does one sin, it's considered as if he's unfaithful or she's unfaithful, then they're not allowed to be together, there's no more God, there's no more Torah, there's no more Judaism. How do you work that out? So says the Rambam, it brings down, it says this is something very important, that when someone does a sin, and he does tshuva, what is the Rambam in Hilchot Tshuva, chapter 2, halacha 4, goes and says that if somebody does tshuva, it's as if they never sinned, to the extent that they're able to change their name, meaning that you're not the same person. You are a different person. That's how different you are. So, what's the difference over here? When you have a married woman who is only kosher and always, faithful to her husband, even she is not considered a betulah. Even she is not considered this maiden that was never with anybody else. But yet somebody who is a Baal Tshuva, meaning that somebody that went and became unfaithful, but they went and they did Tshuva, they are considered to God as if a betulah, as if they are a woman that was never with anybody. Now, what does this bring? This brings us to a very, very important concept. That comes Elul, you have the ability for a fresh start. Everything is new, everything is fresh. Just like a Betula, everything is new. Now, the prophet Yeshayahu, Isaiah, chapter 33, verse 13, says like this, Shimu rechokim asher asiti. Listen, those that are far away, that which I did, u'du'u krovim gvurati, and know the close ones, know who my might. Now, says Rashi, something very, very interesting. Who is known as those that are far? The people that were religious and Jewish and from when they were born. Who is known that are close to God? Those are the people that are the Ba'alei Tshuva. Those are the people that did Tshuva. So now the question is, Shimshon Pincus asks, it should be just the opposite. Who is close to God? Somebody that was always close to God. Somebody that was religious since they were born. Until now, they're close to God. Somebody that just became religious a month ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, they're considered further away. They have a lot more work. Says the Torah, no, just the opposite. You know who's close? The Ba'alei Tshuva are closer to God than the people that were religious from birth. Now why? Says Rabbi Shimshon Pincus something beautiful. This is where we come in with people that have this habitual Judaism. You go through Judaism by going through your habits. You're doing things as if you are robotic. And he quotes Rav Simcha Zissel of Kiev, the Alter of Kelm. And he goes and says, why is it that when we open up the Torah and we see that God created the world, yesh me'ayin, out of nothing, why are we not like, what? You serious? I have never seen that before. Like, that is crazy. Like, why is it when we read the parashiot of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus of Egypt, Kriyat Yam Suf, a splitting of the sea, why are we not like, what? Are you kidding me? Have you ever seen, there's a street magician, and there's a certain group of people, if they see a street magic and they do something, they're like, what? You see them like running laps around. That is they're doing backflips. You know, like they're like, that is unbelievable. The card is in my wallet, right? It's in my womb. I don't know, whatever it is, right? It's going crazy. It's ridiculous. When we read the Torah, and we read that God created the world, when we read that God split the seas, why aren't we going out of our minds? How is that? That's amazing. That's so improbable. It's crazy. And the answer is that the first time that we learned this is when we're 5 years old. God created the world. That's what we learn right when we start yeshiva. And then the next year we learn it again. And the next year we learn it again. And we keep on doing it. And the concept is the knowledge, the intellectual level of understanding is the same as we were when we were 5. Or whenever it is the first time that you heard about it. That's when the way that you understand it is you remember it the way that you originally understood it. That is why in general people think they know everything. People think they know like you go to a 7-year-old. Do you know what's this week's, ask him some question. I know everything. Why? Because my Rabbi told me and now I know everything. Now, anybody that you ask, the less that they know, the more that they think they know. Like I deal in the Baal Tshuva world, in the Kiruv world, and I speak to people. I've had people that were in yeshiva for 1 year in their life, and that was a year that they were not cognitively able to be there, if you understand what I'm saying, with their extracurricular activities. So, and they come and I'm like, why don't you come to more classes? Well, it's like, no, I was in yeshiva for like a year. I know everything. But what bracha do we make on water? I'm like, I don't know where to even begin. There's no words. Like, you know everything. You know nothing. You absolutely nothing is what you actually know. What do you think that you know? People think that they know everything. Why? Because when you hear something the first time, you think that you know it. The beauty of Torah, like, let's say I speak about a certain topic. And, I have like some students, obviously not in this class, a different class, whatever. They say, oh no, I know this topic already. I'm like, really? Because I've been learning for a little bit, of time. And I've been learning more stuff every time I learn it. So you know everything. So please do share with me, like, everything that you know. Like, you know everything? Like, oh, Rosh Hashanah, yeah, I know what's about Judgment Day. I'm well aware of that. Really? You well aware? Like, we come to the realization that we think that we know everything. This is what happens when we learn the Torah, because our perception of God, our perception of the Torah is just like a 5-year-old. The perception that we don't even begin to understand the beauty and amazingness of it. The Chafetz Chaim goes, and he said, do you know that when you bench, when you say Birkat HaMazon, there is a Bracha HaTov HaMeitiv. And in that paragraph, it's in the last 2 sentences, you ask for 15 requests. Do you realize that you're asking for it? I want to actually share with you, because most people that I just say HaTov HaMeitiv don't know what I'm talking about. And so let me go through 15 Hebrew words with you. What we ask every single time we bench, we say Birkat HaMazon after we eat bread. It goes like this. It starts off, we say Lechen, we ask God for kindness. Then we say Lechesed, for mercy. Actually, Lechen is grace, kindness is the Chesed. Lerachamim is mercy, Leravach is relief, Hatzala is for rescue. We ask for Hatzlacha is success, Bracha is blessing. We ask for Yeshua is salvation, and Nechama cancellation. We ask Parnasah v'chakala, livelihood and support. We ask for rachamim. We ask for mercy. We ask for v'chaim and life, v'shalom and peace. V'chol tuv, and everything is good. Mikol tuv lo'olam alech hasedu. And we ask what? That God should not cause us to lack any goodness. Do you realize? I hope that by this point you know what I'm talking about in Birkat HaMazon. But did you ever realize that when you're saying this paragraph, you're asking God for 15 things? People don't even realize when we bench, we're actually asking for God. We all think, okay, God, thank you. I have had people tell me that they finish eating the bread, instead of bench, they say, God, thank you for the delicious food. Done. Like, just the same thing as benching. My own words, it's even better. Be like, that's what you think benching is about? That's what you think Birkat HaMazon is about? Not only that, we ask for so many things for God at this point in time. We don't even realize it. Now, why is it that you could be saying Birkat HaMazon for 25, 30, 40, 50 years and you have no idea what you're saying? The beauty of it is that whenever you go, let's say you're praying in a synagogue, the best person to pray next to is a Baal Tshuva. You see how slowly they read it. and how carefully they're looking at it. It's like it's so fresh. It's like the first time that they're reading it. Sometimes it is. They're going so slowly. I've seen people that pray next to me, and they were going, and literally they're going like one word, and then they're reading, what am I saying? And by the time they finish one paragraph, the Chazan already finished Mincha, Alvit, and Shachrit. They finished everything. They're ready on the next day. But they're going so slow, so careful, because they're not used to it. It's not out of habit anymore. There's a connection going on over here. There was an article that I read about a Chassid, not a Chassid, it was a religious person, very, very firm religious person that works in Amazon. Anybody who's not familiar with Amazon, no, I figure I can't even end that sentence. I don't even know how to end that sentence. So there are 58% of the products of the sellers that sell things on Amazon is third party. It's not based off Amazon. And what's interesting is this is an estimated 7% out of that 58% all originates from one zip code, and it's in Brooklyn. One zip code, whatever it is, it doesn't bring down in the article, is one zip code. And in fact, there's 15% out of that 58% that is estimated to be Orthodox Jews, either in Brooklyn, Lakewood, or Fair Lawn. That's where the majority of the business comes from Amazon. And the 15%, the majority of this. And there was a guy by the name, there was a manager with the Amazon Business Service by the name of James Thompson that he said something so amazing. He said, when we realized there was an Orthodox Jew in the business, we wanted to do business with the Orthodox Jew because they do something so amazing. They do things that were never taught in business schools. They're so innovative. They're so sophisticated. These entrepreneurs they're doing things that we've never seen before. Now, why is it, and how is it possible that these people that are sitting and learning Yeshiva do things that they were never taught in business school? And the answer is very simple. They never went to business school. They don't know the laws. They're doing things on their own mind. So you think out of the box. You realize you start a business, you go to business school. So how do your mind thinks like everybody else thinks, because that's how everybody taught them. But once you start thinking out of the box, then all of a sudden there's new ideas, there's new things that come into play over here, and then you connect to things like you've never connected before. If we realize that there's so much of this world that can be open to us if only we start thinking out of the box, if only we stop doing things out of habit, out of this robotic things that we're stuck with. Now, whenever you walk outside and you see an ant, do you ever appreciate the ant? Now, I was very, very specific. I said outside, not inside your house. Outside your house. You go outside, you see an ant. Right? You could ask my children, I'm very particular, if they're walking, I say, we're not allowed to step on the ants, we're not allowed to kill the ants, these are God's creation. If it's inside your house, it's a different story, but it's outside the house, why do you got to go and you got to disturb them? You're supposed to walk around them. You shouldn't, let them do what they're doing. But do you ever think about the amazing thing about an ant? An ant, tiny, tiny creature, 6 legs, 6 tiny little legs. And you think about it, an ant can lift up to 50 times its weight. Do we understand what that means? And imagine, I know nobody here, but imagine somebody weighs 150 pounds, right? You know what's 50 times that? 7,500 pounds. So imagine you have an average man. His weighs, I don't know, whatever it is. Let's say, I know it's America, so it's probably like 300-400. But whatever, let's say, it's 150 pounds. 50 times that is 7,500 pounds. That's almost, almost 3 tons. That's what an ant could lift comparable to that. Do we realize the amazingness? Have you ever looked at an ant and be like, wow, that is crazy? Do you know that ants don't have ears? We don't even realize. Ants also don't have lungs. They breathe through these pores known as spiracles. That they're holes in their body, and it just goes into their. That's how they breathe. It goes to the ear. The oxygen goes in, and it oxygenates the entire body. There are many ants that have 2 stomachs. One for their own food, one food to share for other ants. Because their ants have to take care of the queen, their ants have to take care of the colony. So do we realize the sophistication, the amazingness of it? There's ants in every single continent except for Antarctica. There's also Chabad in every single, I'm saying, okay. So when we think about it, we don't realize the amazingness of an ant. The simplest, tiniest creature. We don't think about how amazing, why? Because we look at it like we look at it when we were 2 years old. That's how we realize it, because that's what we associate. The first time we saw an ant, we were like, ew, or let me touch that, depending on your childhood, right? And you went, and this is the way that you dealt with these types of species, and that's the way that you think, because you get used to it. And when you get used to it, you don't think out of the box. And when you don't think out of the box, you don't appreciate it, because you just look at it and be like, ah, it's just a six-legged creature that's bothering, and it's just eating things that I spit on the floor, and I throw out. We don't realize the beauty, the amazingness of it. When I was preparing for this, I was thinking, I'm like, we don't appreciate so many things. Think about a chair, for example. The fact, when I was preparing this, I was in my room, and I have like a study, so I was looking at all my bookcases, and I'm like, how amazing is a bookcase? You imagine I would have to pile all my books up and all this stuff up. It's ridiculous. You think about simple inventions. Like obviously, we take it so much for granted. You ever think about how amazing a wheel is? You ever realize that? I was sitting there and I was waiting for the bus stop today for my son. My daughter was with me. I didn't say anything to her, but that's what I was thinking about. There was a minivan that pulled up to park right where I was standing. But it went onto the sidewalk and then it straightened itself out. Now what's so amazing about this wheel is that this wheel is made out of rubber and air, and there's shocks. So it went on the sidewalk, but the car moved, it went up like, let's say this much, the car moved up this much. That's it. There's shocks, there's wheels, there's air, there's so much. Like, do we appreciate that? But like, no, like every time we're doing something, be like, well, the car is making a funny noise. Can't believe God is doing this to me. God, why do you hate me? Like, what did I do to you? Like, we complain. We don't realize what we appreciate. We don't realize what we have. You know why? Because we get used to it. Why do we get used to it? Because we're thinking about it through the immature mind of a little child, and that's the first time that we see things. We go into, let's say, you go into a store, and you want to buy something. And you're a good Jew, so it's something that it's like 100% off. Or whatever, like 3,000% off. You're looking at something, it's worth like 4.5 billion, whatever it is, right? And you're like, and then you go into your pocket and you realize you don't have your wallet, your cash, nothing on you. And you're like, oh my God. It's like, am I Jewish? I'm sorry, God, what I did to deserve. You think about but then if you stop for a second, you realize, wait a minute. But like, you could say to yourself, I'm worth a few $100 million. Are you going to feel bad all of a sudden about like not being able to buy that product? No, if you're worth a few $100 million, you couldn't get it. You're so happy, like, okay, whatever, big deal. I'll get the next one. Why is it that we don't feel like we're each and every single one of us are worth a few $100 million? You realize we have the most sophisticated camera, a camera that works 18 hours a day. If you're a teenager, 6. I don't know. But like, we have 2 of these cameras that are constantly going and are recording everything in the most vivid, live, perfect picture. And it's getting stored in a tiny, tiny little memory system that never needs to be recharged, that never has to go and be replaced for 90, 100, 120 years. And we think we're not billionaires? We think, why can't we appreciate eyesight? Why can't we appreciate movements of legs and body arms and everything? Because we're used to it. Because we get through habit. And if you think, we started off this class thinking, okay, it's a big deal, so I do things habitually. You don't realize you lose out so much in life when you go through habit. Says Rabbi Shimshon Pincus, it says, imagine you had a grandfather 150 years ago. And he says, Mashiach is going to come, there's going to be something amazing. You know what it's going to be? You're going to sit in a house, and there's going to be holes in this house where heat and cool air is going to come out. And you're going to be completely comfortable at every time of the year. And imagine you saying this to a Russian, right? In Siberia, what this means? You understand? It says not only that, there's going to be a hole in the wall where if you turn one button, it's going to come out cold water. And if you turn another button, it's going to come out hot water. Can you believe that? You don't have to go to a well anymore. No, it's going to be right in your house. You're like, come on, Grandpa, you're just dreaming. Yeah, come on. It's like, no, let's get even better. There's going to be a box in your home that you could put your dirty laundry inside, and then it comes out clean. Can you believe it? And be like, no, I can't. That's black magic. That doesn't exist. That doesn't make sense. Be like, no, even more than that. If you want to cook something, you don't have to start a fire. You just put something somewhere, and it just gets hot. Yeah, and you could even utilize your mouth for it. There it is, in a microwave by Amazon Alexa. You don't even have to touch it. You just put it inside and say, whatever it is. Alexa, start off at 2 minutes. and be like, yeah, that's black magic. Yeah, that's halachically forbidden according to the Torah. Be like, oh, it gets even better. It says, imagine you're sitting in Russia or in America, and you could look into a tiny little flat piece of metal or glass, and you could see Israel. And not only that, you could talk live back and forth at the same, but then you can see what's going on over there. And be like, Grandpa, here's your medication, please take them. But it's not true because they didn't have medication back then. And now we have medication, and we have all these things that goes on. Do we begin to appreciate what we have? We don't. Why not? Because we're used to it. So there's so much out of life that we don't appreciate, that we don't utilize, that we don't understand the benefit that it has to us. And because of this, it's very unfortunate we don't say thank you enough. When was the last time you thanked God for something? The fact that we're able to sit in the room at night, that you have lights, and I hope that's air conditioning, right? Something that's cool, that's coming. Like, when is the last time that we have the ability to go and thank God for the simple things in life? Now, it says the pasuk in Yeshayahu, Isaiah, chapter 29, verse 13. That says, Vayomer Hashem, and Hashem says, Yan ki nigash ha'am hazeh befiv u'b'tzvatav kabduni. This nation, they come close to me with their speech and their lips, but v'libo rachak mimeni, but its heart is very, very far away from me. And their fear of me, mitzvat anashim melumada. Their fear of me is something that is taught out of habit. Says Rabbi Shimshon, because even fear of God can be out of habit. Even the fact that you fear God is not even out of your own natural desires and wants, it's all out of habit. Says Rabbi Shimshon, because this is our job coming Elul, coming before Rosh Hashanah. We have to work and bring ourselves back to be like a betula, to be like a maiden, to be like everything is new. When you open up, the next time you open up a siddur, the next time you open up a prayer book, which should be tomorrow morning, it should be like the first time that you ever opened it. The next time that you go to a synagogue should be like the first time that you ever went into it. This is what you need to do. Become like what? Like a ba'alei tshuva. Like somebody has never done it before. And what is this? How is the goal for this? This is all based off relationship. Just like a bride and a groom. The first time, this is where relationship all comes in. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I am to my beloved and beloved to me. You ever realize in a relationship, in the beginning stages, the infatuation stages, you're like the most amazing person ever. You're like, your better half, calls you, or depending on your self-esteem, your worse half, whatever it is. Your better half calls you up and says, hey, listen, I need something. Whatever it is, it's done. And you don't care what it is. You go and you bake for them, you cook for them, you go and you drive, you do everything for them. You have so much energy, you're the best listener, you're the best understander, you're so considerate, because you want to show your love. This is the beginning of a relationship. This is the beginning, the way that you feel, that feeling, imagine that feeling that you could have when serving God. That I'm talking to God? I can't even believe it, I can't understand it. A few months ago I went to Israel. And when I went to Israel, me and my wife, we went on a tour to, it was started off at Kever Rachel, and then we went to Marat HaMachpelah. And we did whatever, we went to Hebron, we did a little thing around that area. Amazing, it was unbelievable experience. And it's a complete amazing story in a different class. But I've been to Kever Rachel quite a few times. So I went to Kever Rachel, and I was going, and I'm praying, it's good prayer compared to American prayer, right? It's good prayer. And then we get on the bus and we go back to this bulletproof bus, which was not bulletproof bus, but I told my sister-in-law that it was bulletproof bus because they told me because it's the only way she was going to come. We went with a few of our family members, and we go onto the bus and we go to Hebron. And we get to Hebron and we do a small tour in the Hebron area, and then we go to Marat HaMachpelah. Now, I only remember one time in my life going to Marat HaMachpelah, and that's a time where I don't remember going to it, but I just remember being there. When I was really, really young. And I go into Marat HaMachpelah, and I was like, whoa, I was beyond, I'm like, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are buried here? I felt it. In my heart, it was like, do-do. Well, it's always does that, but then I went a little faster. I was like, are you kidding me? And then, you have here, you have Rivka, you have Sarah over here. There's so much going on over here. And I've had such a powerful prayer. I was in it. My wife had to go find me because the bus was leaving. It was I was in the zone. And then I was thinking, why is it, Kever Rachel, the Kotel, I've been there before, but why is the Marat HaMachpelah so different? What was so different about it? And it's just, I don't remember ever being there. It's so new. It's so fresh. There was so much of a connection that I had. I was like, my whole Israel trip was like worth it just for, like, there's a connection that you have. Now, what was it? Like, is it so much more holier than Keva Achel and the Kotel? There's a lot of holy places in Israel. I'm not saying, I don't know what's considered more holier in Shemai. There's a lot of holy places in Israel, but why is it, you go to Melon, you go to Abshem Ba'achai, you go to all these places, like, why is it that sometimes you connect more? And the answer is, one of the many answers is, it all depends on you. It all depends on you. Do you feel it? Can you tap into the spiritual energy that exists over there? So if you're open to it, you're like, whoa, like, this is amazing. A Baal Tshuva opens up a siddur, a prayer book for the first time, and they'll be like, I'm talking to God? And like, this is unbelievable. And they're so connected that they have the highest level of prayer. The highest level of prayer possible. This is the importance when you understand the relationship. Coming Rosh Hashanah, coming Elul, what we're working on over here is getting this relationship, this closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says Rav Shimshon Pikus, you want to be safe from judgment? Embrace HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Be close to God. The closer that you are, the better that your judgment is going to be. And this, says Rav Shimshon Pikus, is our main work, our main avodah in these days. This is what we need to do. The foundation of everything is very simple. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. Says Rav Shimshon Pikus, he goes and explains, says something very interesting. I'm going to share with you a few verses. Listen to the nuances in the doubles, in the double language. There's a pasuk in Echa, chapter 1, verse 8. Chet chata Yerushalayim. Jerusalem sinned a sin. What is that? Why is that double? Sinned a sin? Jerusalem sin. Why is it sinned a sin? Furthermore, Isaiah, Yeshayahu, chapter 40, verse 2. Ki lakcha miyad Hashem kiflaim b'chol chatotzeha. She has taken from the hand of God double of all her sins. Double. Kiflaim, double. Why is it also double? And now and then there's also double consolation. Says Yeshayahu, chapter 40, verse 1. Nachamu nachamu ami. People know this part because there's a song. People don't realize that the previous verse is also a song. I mean, it's actually the verse afterwards. Dabu alev Yerushalayim. That's the verse I just said before. When some songs, that's like, oh, this is Judaism. I know this. Yeah, like I hear, Yaakov Shrugi sings about it. But nachamu nachamu ami. Why this double consolation? It's very interesting. Chet chata Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim sinned twice. Then kiflaim. Then it took kiflaim. It took also double. And then nachun, double consolation. What's with this double language going on over here? So the answer is that when you go and you, let's say you have a car, and if you want to keep it, you have to take care of it. And if you don't take care of it, if you neglect it, then the sin and the punishment is the same act. Now what does that mean? Change this neglect to a human being. Let's say you have a friend, and you say a hurtful word to this friend. So now, this friend there's two issues that comes out of it. Number one, the hurtful word, the problem that you caused, but also, now your friend is angry with you. Like an inanimate object is not angry with you. So if you have a friend and you say something bad, there's two things. There's a sin and there's a punishment. There's the fact that you said that you did something wrong, and then there's the fact that now the emotional relationship is strained. It's not the same that it was before. Says Rav Shimshon because this applies to Hashem as well, to God as well. Says the prophet Malachi, chapter 1, verse 6. Ben yechabet av ve'eved adonav. A son honors a father and a servant honors a master. Says God, ve'im avani. But if I am a father, aye kavodi. Where is my honor? Ve'im adonim ani. And if I am a master, aye mori. Where is my fear? Where do people fear me? Meaning that Hashem, says Rav Shimshon Pikus, something amazing. He says Hashem feels the insults, so to speak. Says the Rambam brings a proof for this. The Rav Shimshon Pikus brings a proof of this by the Rambam in Ilchot Shuvah, chapter 7, halacha 6. And it says if somebody does something bad, does a sin, what is he known? Mishukatz u'meruchak v'to'eva. He's hated by God. He's disgusted. He's far removed. It's considered abominable. But what happens if he does Shuvah? V'nechmad karov v'yadid. He is beloved, desirable, and he's close to God. Meaning that there is two things over here, says Rav Shimshon Pikus. When you sin against God, there is a sin, and then there's a separation of that relationship. There's the insult that you gave to God. Now, if what happens is that, let's say somebody was supposed to do something good, but now you separate yourself from you and God because of the sin. Now you lose all that good that was supposed to be for you, you lose it. But what happens if you do tshuva? Nachamu, nachamu. You get consoled twice. You fix the first sin that you did, but you also get the closest back to God. Says Rabbi Shimshon, because we have to understand that when we're dealing with God on Judgment Day, it's not a machine. It's not like you did this, you get this punishment. You did it. It's a relationship that's going on over here. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. There's a relationship over here, and this is why Rabbeinu Yonah goes and says in Sha'arei Tshuva, the first chalik in Sha'arei Tshuva goes and says the first shal. He says that if someone goes and he sinned, and he delays his repentance. Now you have to think about this very, very strong, what I'm about to say. If you have sinned in your life and you're delaying the repentance, your punishment becomes increasingly harsher every single time. Why? Why is it becoming increasingly harsher? And the answer is because Hashem's wrath is upon you. God is angry with you. You did something against God. The Sha'arei Tshuva goes and brings this mashal. This is a Sha'arei Tshuva that I read often, and I've never understood it until I read the way the Rabbi Shimshon Pincus goes and explain it. He brings a mashal that there was once a gang of thieves that they went and they were captured by the king and they were thrown into the dungeon. And the thieves started digging. They made a tunnel out of their cell and they escaped. The guard came the next morning and he saw everybody escaped except for one prisoner. And the guard looked at the prisoner and he says, "How dare you?" And he started whipping the prisoner. And the prisoner says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm the only one who stayed. I'm the only one who's actually a good prisoner. Everybody else escaped." And the prisoner says, "That's exactly why I'm hitting you. Because you stayed." I was like, "Why? How? What's wrong with that? In fact, that's a good thing. He stayed. He was a good prisoner." Explains Rabbi Shimshon Pincus. It explains the Sha'arei Tshuva. He says, you know why it's so problem? Because if you stayed, that means, you know what? It's not so bad, prison. Like, it's okay. Like, I'll be over here. Meaning that you don't understand the severity of what you did. You don't understand the severity of your punishment, so you're okay where you are. Says Rabbi Shimshon Pincus, if you did a sin, and you feel you're okay where you are, that's the biggest insult to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the biggest insult. You sinned and you think you're okay? Like this is why it gets me so bothered by, I get very, very bothered by when people go, and I know they don't keep Shabbat, they don't keep kosher, they don't keep Seder, they don't keep anything, and what happens? What do they say? Me and God, we're tight. They do this, and they don't understand that it's a wrong religion. But they go, they cross their fingers, right? They go, and like, me and God, we're tight. You're not. What do you mean you're tight? You don't listen to God. You don't listen to God. You don't realize, I mean, we all have things that we need to work on. We don't realize how that affects our judgment, forget about how it affects. How is it that we feel that we did that bad thing? Do we understand that Now, if it was a machine and you did this, you did that, then who cares? But there's a relationship going on over here. If you say something hurtful to your spouse, if you say something hurtful to your parent, and it doesn't bother you, there's something very wrong with that relationship. It's a time where we have to go and fix our relationship. You want to get a good judgment? This is the time that you fix your relationship with God. You bring it to the point that it was so fresh, the infatuation stage. The stage like a ba'alei tshuva, like somebody who has never done it before. That is number one. Number one, we have to do it like a relationship, like a bride and a groom. Let's look at number two. In order to get this relationship, you have to, what is a relationship? A relationship has to be out of love. That is how a relationship has to be. Any other relationship could be either abusive or not a healthy relationship. A positive, healthy relationship should be out of love. Now, when you have a relationship out of love, what does it result from that? It brings joy. It brings happiness. Now, this is the importance of doing your mitzvot with happiness. Now, let's speak a little bit about this. Very, very important. Says Rabbi Nebenzahl, I'll tell you a little, I wasn't planning on saying this. I was in... No, I don't have to say it. Okay, Rabbi Nebenzahl. In Parashat Ki Tavo, I have to tell it to you now, right? Okay, so never mind. So now the Parashat Ki Tavo, okay, fine. So when I was in Israel a few years ago, and I was there with my wife and my kids, and I went over to, I have two sisters that live in Israel, so I went over to my brother-in-law. I said, I want to speak to a righteous rabbi. I want to get a blessing for them. So he said, you go to the old city, and you go and you speak to Rabbi Nebenzahl. So I said, does he see anybody? He says, just go knock on his door. So this is back when my youngest was very, very young, and we used something like I forgot what it's called, a carrier or carry-on? I don't know, like you sort of like just like have a backwards knapsack and you just like put your baby inside there. My wife was, had my baby over there, and we just it was Friday afternoon, I still remember it, and we walked up, to this it's right near the Kotel, and I was like, where's Rabbi Nebenzahl's door? Where's Rabbi Nebenzahl's door? And they went and they showed me there, and I knocked on the door, was like Friday afternoon, like 2 hours before Shabbat. And he opens the door and he sees, a couple over there with the child over there. And I'm like, can I have a blessing? And he's like looking, he's like, did you call before? I was like, no. I know it's 2 hours before Shabbat. Can I have a blessing? It was the nicest guy. He was the nicest. He went and he gave us a blessing. And then he continued. But you see somebody who's a righteous person. You know how you could tell in their face. You'd be like, open the door and be like, whoa, like wow, like this a holy person. So Rabbi Nevitzal goes and says like this. He says in Parashat Kitavon, there's the tochacha, the rebuke, the reproof that God gives through Moshe Rabbeinu to the Jewish people, and this is the strongest rebuke admonition given. And the Midrash Tanchuma goes and says that after Moshe goes and gave this rebuke and sowed all the curses, the Jewish people became so discouraged that immediately right after that, the Moshe Rabbeinu had to go and recite another parashat, Parashat Nitzavim, to uplift their spirit. That's how serious the rebuke was that is in Parashat Kitavon. Now, when you look at this rebuke, what is this rebuke? You look at Parashat Kitavon, Devarim, chapter 28, verse 45 to verse 47. It says, "Uva'u lecha kol hakolot," and all these curses will come upon you. Kol hakolot hare'elu v'radfucha, they will chase you, v'yisigucha, and they will go and they will overtake you. Ad yishamdecha, they will go and they will destroy you. Ki lo shamata b'kol Hashem Elokecha, because you did not listen to the voice of God. Which was what? That God told you, that it commanded you to go and follow His commandments, and you didn't, you are going to get, and these curses are going to go and they're going to destroy you. Now, for what purpose? What was the reason for this? Says the pasuk, the two psukim later, because you did not serve your God out of happiness. The importance of happiness learns a Rambam that is not merely a nice thing to do when you come to a class. You should do it out of joy, out of happiness. You're praying, you should be out of joy, out of happiness. You're saying a bracha, you should do it out of joy, out of happiness. And if you don't, you're lacking in the mitzvah. It's a halachic requirement. It is so important because if you don't, there's so many curses that could come upon us, God forbid, because you don't serve God out of happiness. Now, happiness, when you're happy about something, you're excited about something. The easiest way to relate this is, let's say you go and you plan a vacation. You plan that you're going to go away, and you're planning this vacation for a year. You're going to go and you're going to travel to, I don't know, I would like to say Israel, but let's say Australia, right? Let's say something like more, you're going to China, you're going to whatever it is, and you're planning this vacation for a really long time. And your flight is 4 a.m. And you go, and can you sleep that night? You're like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. And you're like, no, I have to pack, and I need this. You realize before you go on a vacation, you pack things that you have never used before in your life. Like, these slippers that double as massage feet, I probably need it because who knows what. You go and you take things that you've never thought before that you needed. And you go and you try to fall asleep, but you're so excited. Let's say you have to be in the airport at 6 o'clock, right? So you're waking up at 3 a.m. You want to leave at 4. The alarms rings at 3 a.m. Are you going to be like, oh, I'm so tired? Be like, no! You're going to shut off that alarm, and you're going to start singing. You're going to be like, it's a beautiful day! You could be the least morning person possible, right? One of those morning people that, you wake up, those morning people that they wake up, and they just look at you, and then you just like melt, and be like, I'm sorry, I didn't have my coffee yet, and then be like, curse be upon everybody. Your eyes turn red, glow a little bit, you start sounding demonic. You might know what I'm referring to, especially if it's you. And you come over there, but comes a day where you're planning this vacation, you wake up, birds are chirping, they're landing on your sleeves, and you're singing, it's a beautiful day, and it's amazing, and you're dancing, and you're putting everything, and you go over, and you walk into the cab driver is still drinking his Red Bull mixed with coffee and Irish, alcohol, whatever it is, right? And he's going in there, and he's like, where to? And you're like, JFK, but now it doesn't happen because it's Uber, so you don't need it, but imagine that you do need to say that. And you're walking, and you're so chatty, you're so happy, you'll be like, so how's your day going? And be like, curse be you and your children. What are you telling me my day? It's not even, the sun is not even out. What are you telling me? And you're into the heavens. But why? Yesterday you had to wake up at 8 a.m. for work. And you couldn't get out, even though you slept for 45 hours. Right? You couldn't get out of bed. And when you finally got out of bed, you were screaming at everybody. You're searching in bed. What changed? It wasn't the amount of sleep. The answer is your attitude, your excitement about it. When you're doing mitzvah, you're supposed to have excitement about it. Imagine that you feel that excitement when you wake up to go to pray Shacharit. Imagine that you have to go and dress modestly instead of being like, oh. You're like, amazing! It's so amazing! It's beautiful! It's amazing! That's the way that we need to get to. And if you're lacking that, then you're not doing the mitzvah properly. The question is, how do you get to that? How is it possible to get to that level? So, when we realize that if you go and you follow Judaism in a way that is like, oh, I got to do this, now I got to be modest, now I got to be Jewish, now I got to be Shabbos, now I got to do you realize your children pick up on it. There was a very famous story that you had a person that went in every Friday night, and you'd be like, "Oy, it's schwer to be a Yid. It's so difficult to be a Jew." I don't know if I said that. Did I say that right in Yiddish? Okay, good. He says, "Oh, it's so difficult to be a Jew." You'd be like, "Really? This is what you're showing your kids? You know what? Those kids are not going to be religious. If you go and you say like, oh, it's so difficult to be Jewish," be like, why would a kid want to be a part of that? Be like, it's so difficult. Why would I want to be that? But if you go and be like, Judaism is amazing. Judaism is awesome. I love God. I love Judaism. I love the fact that I had to fast on Yom Kippur. I love the fact that I have an ability to go and pray to God on Rosh Hashanah. I love the fact that I have to live in a tent for a week. I love the fact that I had to eat matzot. It's so amazing, so beautiful. Then guess what? The children are going to want to do that. And even furthermore, if you go and you do mitzvot out of, I can't believe it, I have to go to a class now and I have to do this, then guess what? Not only are your children going to pick up on it, you're going to pick up on that also. You're not going to end up keeping things. And if you do, you're not going to do it properly. You're going to do it halfway. You're going to be like, okay, fine, you can do this. You're not going to be able to do things. In order to properly fulfill Judaism, it has to be out of joy. It has to be out of simcha. Now, says Reb Chaim Kanievsky, says that how come, you have so many blessings in the Torah that says that if you keep my mitzvot, you're going to have an amazing life. But how come we don't see it? You see so many people that do all the mitzvot, but they don't have an amazing life. Says Reb Chaim Kanievsky, there's a difference if you do a mitzvah out of joy and happiness versus you do a mitzvah out of, it's 9 o'clock, I have to go to sleep, I'm so tired, I can't believe this guy is speaking so long. I just want to go home already. It's a difference of how you go and how you interact with it. It'd be like, what are you talking about? Like every single word of Torah is an infinite amount of things. If anything, you should tell me never stop speaking. You realize that if you go, every mitzvah is Talmud Torah connected to Kulam. Every word that you learn Torah is considered as if you had 613 mitzvot. Now, if you do it out of happiness, says the Ochot Tzadikim, the ninth Shah, goes and says that if you do mitzvah out of happiness, times that by 1,000. Your mitzvah reward is times by 1,000. If you do it with humility, it's times another 1,000. By the way, if you do it on Shabbat, it's another 1,000. It's according to Ben Ish Chai. So if you do a few times, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, you get to a very, very, very large number. What is it, 1 billion? 100 billion? Whatever it is, right? It's a significant. You imagine the worth that you have by every word that you learn Torah? If you understand it, you'll be dancing, you'll be singing, you'll be so pumped, you can't. You'll be talking probably really fast when you give a class. You'll probably be going and you can, it's amazing. It's unbelievable when you can connect to it. Now, when we go and we realize the value of the mitzvot, then you could start doing mitzvot out of joy. When you understand the value that each and every single one of you have by coming here and learning to a class, not coming here, going to any class, learning any Torah, dressing modestly, saying a bracha, when you realize the value, says Rabbi Bachai, then you'll be able to react to it with joy. The Dubbi Maggid goes and says, if you want to really focus on joy, focus on the eternal benefits that each and every single one of you will have every time you do a mitzvah. Think about it for a second. Think about the benefits that you would have. The more that you love something or somebody, the more important it is to you. The Baal Shem Tov once went and he was trying to find his etrog. And his etrog, he had to be the perfect etrog. And he realized, it came to him in a dream that it's going to be somebody in Constantinople. Was it Constantinople? Constantinople? Whatever it is, someplace that he has to go, Constantinople. He had to go and that's where his etrog is. So he goes and he travels to this place, Constantinople. And he goes and he meets somebody this is his etrog. And he says, I'll give you any money. Sell me this etrog. And he says, no. He says, I can't sell you the etrog, but he says, I'll offer you something else. Join me for Sukkot and we'll use it together. So the Baal Shem Tov said, fine. And they went and they used that etrog together, and it was a crazy, uplifting Sukkot. After, when the Baal Shem Tov was about to leave, he calls over his host and he thanks him and he says, listen, he says, I have to ask you. He says, what merit do you have to have such a perfect etrog? He says, how did you get such a perfect etrog? He says, listen, he says, I don't know. He says, but I'll tell you one thing. He says, right after Simchat Torah, right after Sukkot is finished, I have a little jar. And every time I have a little extra money, I put it inside over there to save for my new etrog for next year. He says, I'm always thinking about this. The Baal Shem Tov says that makes perfect sense. He says somebody that loves and appreciates something is always thinking about that something. If you have an infatuation, appreciation for your spouse, and B'ezras Hashem, if you don't have one, B'ezras Hashem, when you do have a spouse, when you have that you're always thinking about it. You're like, okay, what could I do for my spouse? Like, how could I make it better? Like, it's always on your mind. It's always that. And then if you realize, we go and we kiss a mezuzah. You have a sefer that falls on the floor, we kiss it. Well, it's a relationship that we're dealing with. And again, this is the relationship with God that we're dealing with over here. So now, I want to finish off with probably the most important part of this class. How do we get to that? We started off with saying, like, how to get out of habit. How to get something out of it. So the next, 2 minutes, very, very important. Listen to it 1,000. I've tried it. I've done it. It works. Extremely, extremely important. I strongly recommend every single one of us to do it. Number one, how do we get out of this habit and how do we get to this relationship status? Number one, it has to be a relationship. Ani lo dodi v'dodi li. I am to my beloved and beloved is to me. You have to care about it. You have to want it. You have to desire to do God's will. When you have that, that's step one. Step two, in order to get to Ani lo dodi, to my beloved relationship, it has to be out of love. Once you have love, this brings joy. This brings simcha. Once you have that, then this leads to something that removes out of habit. Now, how does this remove out of habit? There's 3 parts of this. Part A, before you do something, think about it for 5 seconds. That's all you need, 5, 10 seconds. Whatever it is that you need, think about it. You're about to make a blessing. You're about to pick up a couple, or you're about to make a blessing. Think about it. You're talking to God right now. You're about to put on tefillin, you're about to do a kiss of mitzvah, whatever it is, you're doing a positive commandment. You're doing a mitzvah over here. You're about to go and dress modestly. You're doing the will of God. You're doing that. Think about that for a second. That's all. Part one, think. Think before you do something. Before you do this mitzvah. Once you start thinking, contemplate the reward that you're going to get out of it. We don't know. But start contemplating that and the crazy reward that you could get out of it. That's part A. Part B, be grateful. Appreciate what you have. You've never appreciated an ant. Start appreciating it. When you go and you have a cup of water, appreciate the fact that you have a cup of water. You're about to kiss a mezuzah, realize that you have a place to put a mezuzah. You have the ability to be modest, realize that you have that body that you're able to walk around, that you're not bedbound, that you're not sick, that you're healthy, you're able to walk around. Appreciate what you have. Once you appreciate what you have, you're going to be able to be grateful. Now, no matter, even if you're tired, you're not in the mood, once you realize the worth and the value of it, and you're creating billions of spiritual value, mitzvot, you're going to be able to handle this differently. So number one, think. Number two, be grateful. Number three, envision the spirituality infusing inside of you. Now, what does this mean? We didn't explain this yet. The Midrash in Shemot Rabbah goes and says that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu went and he gave the Torah to the Jewish people, he said, I sold you my Torah and I came along with it. To what is this? We explained this concept before. That if somebody goes and buys a car, you buy a used car from somebody, spend $10,000, you buy a used car from somebody. You finish a transaction, and then you tell this person, okay, now can you take me to ShopRite? You're like, what? You're like, no, I drive yourself. You're like, no, I just bought the car off you. He says, yeah, so it's your car. Go drive. You're like, no, I want you to drive me. He says, what do you think, I'm the chauffeur now? You bought the car, you think I come along with it? You bought the car, that's yours. I'm going home. He says, this is you, and this is me. 2 separate things. That's not the way that it says in Midrash Rabbah. When God goes and gave us the Torah, He gave us part of Him as well. To the extent that when somebody goes and learns Torah, when you acquire Torah, you're acquiring God as well, says Rabbi Shimshon Pincus. You're acquiring God Himself. Think of it in the sense of this. Let's say you buy a computer. And once you buy it, you spend $1,000 on a computer. You buy this computer, and Bill Gates rings your doorbell. You're like, yes, can I help you? Be like, yeah, you bought the computer. I come along with it. Where do you want me to work? Be like, well, yeah, you're like, you bought the computer, I come together with the computer. You buy something on Amazon, Jeff Bezos goes and rings your bell, and with his ex-wife, Mackenzie, I don't know what the partnership is going on over there. He goes in, he walks up over there, and he says, what can I do for you? You bought some Pampers. How can I help you? And be like, what do you mean? Be like, no, you purchase something, so it comes together with it. Be like, can we imagine, you would never, if you have the founder of Amazon working for you, you don't have to work anymore. Like, that's it. You take care of it. If you have Bill Gates working for you, be like, okay, you can, I don't need to work anymore. I don't need to do anything anymore. I got this. When we learn Torah, we acquire God. You know what God is? God created Jeff Bezos and all those people are nothing. God, do you realize what happens when you acquire this? When next time that you learn, the next time that you pray, Even right now, you're listening, you're praying right, you're learning right now. Maybe you're praying for me to finish, I don't know. But like you're learning right now. Envelop the spirituality, the kedusha, the Torah. The Torah kedusha is going and it's infusing in your ears and your mind. Feel it. If you concentrate this for 1 second, you're going to feel it. Your heart is going to go, it's going to get a little flutter. It's going to feel a little different. You go and you're about to pray to God. Envision it. Feel the spirituality coming into you. These are the 3 parts. Again, think before you do something. Think before you do a mitzvah. I'm about to do a mitzvah. I'm about to talk to God. Number 2, be grateful they have the ability to do that. Number 3, feel that spirituality. Once you feel that, there's no more going to be robotic. It's not going to be habitual anymore. Joy, you're going to be dancing. You're going to be like, it's crazy. I'm learning. I'm talking to God. I'm like enveloped with God. It's going to be at a completely different level. Says Rabbi because this is what we need to do for Rosh Hashanah. Throughout the entire year also. But specifically, well, for Rosh Hashanah, ani l'dodi v'dodili, it's a relationship. Because in order to get everything over here, it has to start off with a relationship. It's a relationship. Yes, fear is very important. We should be very scared. But don't forget the love that we have to it. The relationship is based off love. We have to think about this. We have to contemplate this. We have to understand this. That we're coming to Rosh Hashanah, there is a loving Father in heaven that's judging us. But the question is, are you the loving child that's in that relationship as well? Are you going and are you connecting to God the way that you're supposed to? And if you're not doing mitzvot out of simcha, and if you're not doing the mitzvot out of the joy and the enthusiasm, then there's something lacking. Now, I know it's very, very difficult. You can't just change your life, overnight. But you could pick a few mitzvot. Do these 3 things. Think about it. Be grateful that you have the ability to do it, and feel the spirituality when you're doing it. Try it. It's crazy. I'm telling you, the next time you're going to try it, you're going to get goosebumps. You're going to come over there and you're going to be like, this is crazy. Like, I feel the spirituality. I feel God. Just like I felt when I was Ba'amarat Machpelah. It's no different. I prayed in Kever Achel. I prayed in Melon. I prayed in so many places, but you feel different. It all depends on you. Not so much about the situation. The situation is very important. You go to a holy place, it's very important. But even more important is how you connect to God. And when you connect to God, it's a different world. B'ezrat Hashem, with this, we will have an unbelievably amazing judgment this year. A judgment that we will each have success in everything from health to wealth, physically, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, in all aspects. May we all be blessed with only the good, with only a good year, with only a good life, and with only amazing brachot.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.